Hello everybody. We have finance set up. My name is Kirill Krivalap. I am head of Analytical Platform Center for Economic Recovery and also advisor to the Prime Minister of Ukraine on economic issues. As you probably know, yesterday the Minister of Ecology of Ukraine, Ruslan Strelets, has presented, like really briefly in one slide, but during his speech, the initiative of Green Routes. Today we are going to make a small event just to explain a bit more what this initiative is about. Vladimir Buzhan, he is an expert and the team lead in our Center for Economic Recovery. We also expected the representative from the Ministry of Ecology to be present, but unfortunately, I share circumstances, but she had to leave, and so we don't have the Deputy Minister here with us. But we will explain what this initiative is about. And we also have Mikhail Malkov with us, who is advisor to the relevant secretariat in United Nations organization. And he will comment on the importance and some key points of this initiative. So let me start. In general, you all probably know that Ukraine is a large player in the world food market. At wheat, for example, at wheat production, we count for around 9 to 10% of the world market of wheat, for example. In several African countries, not one, but in many of them, share of Ukrainian food on the market is from 20 to even 50%. So Ukrainian food is quite important for this specific region, not only in Europe, not only in post-Soviet Union countries, but in Africa specifically. And you know that Russian invasion put this food supply at risk. And we exported around 90% of our grain export came through ports. And these ports are now under attack. And this initiative, you can see the nice representation of the war going on in Ukraine. And at the moment when I speak, Russian missiles hit Kiev again. And we have 2 residential buildings hit by Russian missiles right now, like an hour ago. And there is a 3rd wave of missiles and 4th wave of missiles. So it's quite difficult to be patient when your family and friends are in Kiev at this moment. So this grain initiative works, but it's limited in its capacity. Not all the ports participate in this initiative. And that's why this grain export is at risk. So what is the main idea of this green routes is that we need to actually create a coalition of business and governments to develop alternate routes through Europe, through European countries, of course. But the end goal of this export is a worldwide export. It's export to Africa. So these alternative routes, they can be developed, they can be built from scratch in some places using newest equipment, using green technologies. And this initiative is about that, just to bring focus to this initiative and bring coalition of business and governments to implement that. Now I will pass the floor to Vladimir Buzhan. Our center did some research on this topic and helped the Ministry of Ecology to get ready. So Vladimir, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Kirill. I would like to open the first slide. Which? Thank you. Yeah, now it's better. So the key issue today, as we see, not only the climate change, but also the food security, and especially for African countries. And as of yesterday, already 8 billion people live on the planet. And definitely least developed countries struggle the most from food security issues and for malnutrition due to lack of access to food, due to deficit on the market, due to inability to produce internally some types of foods. And we will discuss that just briefly in a moment. So next slide, please. So as you know, as a result of COVID and many other factors such as speedy recovery of global economy after COVID, the price on fertilizers, on nutrients, and on products as a result, on byproducts and agricultural products, the price has increased significantly. And in addition, in African countries, it's been even more significant because there is a shortage of agricultural products on African market, first of all, and secondly, as a reason of that fact that basically The war that started in Ukraine has significantly impacted the logistical routes that are targeting that markets. And as you know, 90% of the export was through seaports in Ukraine. And currently we have to export with 20% of existing capacity, we have to export over through seaports in Romania, Poland, Turkey, and so on. And definitely due to that fact, we have a reduction in price on local market, which is twice lower than on the global market. And actually transportation costs are twice higher in Ukraine today, twice higher than production costs and storage costs of grain in Ukraine. Next slide, please. So basically, if we cover each type of element of value chains that we have today, is definitely we have the challenges as a result of war, both in terms of access to workforce, access to inputs, such as, for example, equipment, such as oil products, but as well, we have significant amount of damaged territories, which are contaminated with mines. And as a result of that, we have smaller amount of cropland. So the next aspect that I would like to discuss is definitely lack of processing capacities and infrastructure, specifically in western part of Ukraine, which is core today for exporting agricultural products. As a result of that, we are able to export only 30% of what we have to. And definitely, as last but not the least, is that such kind of effect has a significant effect on the global market. And we calculated that the price on the global market increased on wheat by 8% due to shortage of Ukrainian wheat on the global market. So definitely that significantly impacts the African food crisis, and definitely the price on the African market skyrockets today. And based on the fact that today in Africa inflation is growing and the GDP in many countries is going down, that's going to have a significant impact on food security of Africa. Next slide, please. So definitely, what are the key questions? What are the key interventions that we should do in order to combat climate change and in order to combat food security globally and in Africa as well? So first of all, definitely there are some global context, that is a growing population, that is a climate change, which leads to frequent droughts, and that is definitely increase in costs of agricultural products, and as a result, as a factor, inputs that are significant share of cost structure of agricultural products. So the second aspect is the local aspect in Ukraine. The local aspect is that, first of all, we have a smaller amount of croplands currently under control, and which are not contaminated. The second aspect is that we have low capacity through seaports, because the Green Deal today, the wheat deal or the agricultural deal with the Turkey is not as sufficient today, and it ensures only 20 to 30% of export capacities, and we are not sure how long will it exist. And last but not the least is definitely that the purchasing power in Africa is reducing today due to significant increase in economic losses of Africa. So what can we do with that? First of all, what we think is that we should develop the new green routes that would ensure the smooth and resilient export of products to African countries. The second one is that we expect the increase in volume of grain cultivation in African countries, and that is one of the purpose of the initiative, because we see a potential in African countries to increase production as well. We do not rely and we do not expect that Ukraine is going to be a supplier to Africa fully. We think that Africa should ensure their food security on their own as well. The last but not the least is that we have to implement climate smart agricultural technologies, and in order to do that, we have to obtain the knowledge. We have to teach the farmers how to apply those knowledge, and that would improve productivity and productivity of cropland, and definitely that would ensure in many cases how we can reduce the costs. And along not only on the stage of production but also on the stage of infrastructure and transportation, we should implement green technologies in such countries as Romania and Poland that would ensure the increase of transshipment and basically Ukrainian grain transportation to African countries. The last but not the least is application of climate smart agricultural technologies in Africa, that would ensure such technologies as drip irrigation, for example, or no-till technologies would ensure that African agricultural producers would be able to increase their crop productivity. Next slide, please. So basically, our initiative is targeting coordination of those efforts of government, of business, of international organizations and IFIs. And the key idea is to make interventions on each stage and to share the knowledge and to share the key targets identified within the initiative. So we are trying to combat food security, to create new workplaces by developing the infrastructure and production. And also we target to mobilize certain amount of finances, of green finances, in order to target those initiatives and to direct those finances on these specific projects. So we expect interventions along the value chain, both on consumption and production stages. And we expect that states should also play a big role in this, because that's also not only conditions for business that they create on their own, but it's also conditions that government creates for them, like state subsidies, like government priorities, and so on. And we have to consider climate indicators in this policy. And this kind of initiative is an opportunity for all stakeholders to define the targets and to coordinate with one another regarding the targets and monitoring of the implementation of these targets. Next slide, please. So the interventions imply, first of all, improvement in means of production, investment in new technologies and in new, for example, tractors and so on. The second one is definitely transformation of the energy sector, which supplies the agricultural producers, and we have a lot of capacity and a lot of interest in biomass transformation and application on local level of agricultural producers. And basically it's application of IT technology for climate smart agriculture that would ensure a quick and smooth increase of productivity of agricultural producers, especially small farmers, because they are not applying sufficiently these technologies today. On the second stage, we expect that we have to develop river transportation, which is a low, I would not say carbon neutral, but really in terms of transport types, it's one of the most effective types of transport for transportation and one of the cheapest one. The next one is development of railway transportation. Today, trains use the coal. We have to make a shift to electrification of railway transportation. And last but not the least is development of storages. Storage would ensure that that the grain would not get spoiled until it waits for transportation. And especially in western part of Ukraine, we lack that grain storages. The last but not the least is that we have to intervene also to implement projects also in African countries. And we expect that we have to launch products like micro loan projects and products that would ensure procurement of agricultural products and long-term procurement of agricultural products in African countries, and as well increasing local production by implementing new climate smart agricultural technologies. The last but not the least is that we see that there is a big potential for food processing and for bakery business in many countries, which would ensure a much more significant storage of agricultural products and byproducts in African countries. Next slide, please. So how should we implement the initiative? Definitely at this stage, we are at the very beginning, and what we do now is definitely we try to present our ideas, and after that, there will be an official invitation from the ministry to join the initiative and to identify within the working group specific indicators that we wish to achieve within this initiative. The next stage is that we should work on implementing of this initiative, identify specific projects that should be intervened. And the last but not the least is definitely we have to monitor them and to define whether we have reached the targets or not. So basically, the next scope would be devoted, and from our side, we will make a monitor and presentation on how the initiative has been implemented and what targets have been achieved. Basically, I think now we should move on to a small conversation with our experts, and after that we can have a brief discussion as well on initiative in more details. Thank you.
Thank you, Vladimir. We can stop the presentation at the moment, and I will ask Mikhail Malkov. Can you hear us, Mikhail?
Yes, of course. Thank you very much, everyone.
Can
you hear me?
We're
Yes.
testing sound.
Yeah. Yeah, everything is okay.
Somehow we don't hear you.
Okay, wait.
But our technical team is doing its best.
Okay. Is it okay now?
Now it's okay. Now it's fine. So Mikhail, we have guests at our panel. Not all of them know you personally. So I would like ask you to present yourself a bit, explain your experience, and then share your opinion about this initiative and what is the most important part in implementing that. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Kirill. First of all, dear colleagues, thank you very much for inviting. My name is Mikhail Malkov, and I am the Policy and Program Advisor of Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. I have more than 10 years of experience working with FAO, and at large with the system, with the UN system, dealing mostly with food security issues, chemical security, and not least all environmental impacts. Working also with UNEP and with Resident Coordinator's Office in Ukraine, United Nations Resident Coordinator Office. Indeed, I would like to say that the topic is extremely important, the one we are discussing now, because the issues of general security is really very big concern, and the issues of food security is also a very big concern. Of course, it's a global concern. Ingrid Anderson, the Undersecretary General of United Nations, yesterday in the Ukrainian pavilion, and just mentioned that this is a real global food crisis, which should be and certain measures should be developed in order to ensure the global food security. But when it comes to food security, I guess it is very important to give the correct definition of what food security is, in order to understand the importance of the topic you, Kirill, and you, Vladimir, are raising in your fantastic initiative. And by the way, Volodya, a big credit to you and to the work of Central of Economic Recovery for fantastic presentation and for fantastic work. So the definition of food security is that food security exists when all people at all times have physical and economic access to sufficient, safe, and nutrition food that meets their dietary needs and food preferences for an active and healthy life. This is an official UN definition developed by FAO. And therefore, it is the role of Ukraine as one of the global food suppliers at the food basket, global food basket, cannot be underestimated. And when it comes to the pillars of food security, there are four main pillars in accordance with FAO. The first one is food availability on the markets, on global side, but also on the regional side. The second one is food affordability or access to food. That means that the people should be affordable to pay for food. Even if it exists to the money, they should be affordable. The third pillar is utilization, of course, is the way how it is distributed, how it is sold, how the logistics is organized. And the fourth one is stability. I mean, stability in logistics, stability in movement of foods, in availability of foods in the market. These four pillars all of them are affected by the war in Ukraine, all of them. And therefore, the way how you would like to do it, analyzing the entire food system supply chain is very much important and very much in line with the UN approach. That's why, of course, we will do our best in order to provide relevant support to this initiative. And by the way, we have been doing that already. So we are already, as FAO, we are already contributing to it. I will start with the very first point, which you, Vladimir, has mentioned in your presentation: the support to the small-scale farmers in the in availability of the technology and in raising their capacity, in the capacity building. We have been doing that for years now. We are working with the small scale farmers. Even now, we are providing them support, starting from inputs like seeds, whatever, and finishing with providing them advice what should be done, how it can be done, and so on. And the other point is very important. You have mentioned the storages. For us, storage issue was absolutely critical. Even starting from, I guess, from March, when we understood that there are lots of food storages have been simply targeted by the Russian bombing. And what happened is that together with the Ministry of Agrarian Policy and Food, we have started talking with various donors, and some of them, namely Canada, first of all, but also Japan, Germany, and Australian private fund, which is called Mandaru. They provided us with some funds, and finally FAO has purchased the temporary storage for grain in the form of plastic sleeves for temporary storing of 7 million tons, which roughly covers in about 40% of the entire Ukrainian need in storage. Problem with storage is, well, we have two types of problems with storage. The first one, of course, is the real damage of storage due to targeting by Russians, but there is a second issue which should be also considered. The fact is that the storages were, the existing storages, they were full with grain of the previous harvest of the year of marketing year 2021-22 because of the blockade of Ukrainian ports. And therefore, your initiative of organizing the smart logistics, bearing in mind the environmental factor, is certainly very, very much supported by ourselves as the United Nations, but also as a technical organization which is dealing with this issue. So whenever it comes to our mandate, we'll certainly, and by the way, funds availability, of course, we'll be very much happy to provide technical support, and certainly we'll start discussions as soon as you gentlemen will return back to Ukraine. I am, by the way, already on the way, so I apologize for a little bit awful video conditions. Another issue you have pointed out the possible cooperation with Africa. Yesterday, during the session related to food systems transformation and specifically water issues in this section, we had a guest from Democratic Republic of Congo who was supposed to participate in your respective session, but unfortunately he's on the way to Turkey right now. We agreed in principle that at least in DRC it will be kind of joint scientific and technological learning center in order to ensure sustainable production of crops in DRC, which will on one hand create the reserve food basket, which is quite important from the global perspective, but also it will create for us the reputation of reliable partner who is not only thinking about export, but always also thinking about the global context. And this reputation will help us to ensure and to increase our export and value-added products, which certainly will become a very significant issue, especially under current circumstances. And in the end of my small speech, I would like to ask to come back to the very first point raised by Kirill, that right now, even in this minute, we are facing another big missile attack from Russians, from our enemies. And sitting here in in Warsaw on the way to Ukraine. I am just receiving each moment, receiving the results of the head counts of my personnel, which is located in Kiev and Lviv and Dnipro, getting the information that they are sitting safe and shelter. Of course, I'll be back tomorrow to the country. This is no doubt. But I would like, as a manager of FAO, I would like to ensure that FAO will stand with Ukraine as much as it is important for the country and for the global food security. Over to you, colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mikhail. Thank you for your support. And thank you for this great effort that you did in purchasing and distributing those storage capacities for our farmers throughout Ukraine. So I think we need to make one last announcement about the website that I'll pass the floor to Vladimir to comment on that.
Thank you. So our initiative is at the very beginning, and already after the COP, we will send official invitations to multinational donors, organizations, and countries. At this stage, you can get more information by the QR code and the website, where we have published the research, which confirms the economic assessment of current state of environmental and grain supply chain to Africa, and the new grain routes, which could be established and would reduce the footprint along that transportation chain. And definitely on the website, you can also contact us and get more information on the initiative. Yeah, thank you.
So as it was said, we want to use this opportunity and this conference to present the general concept of these green routes. Of course, we're not waiting, we're developing these routes, and investments are happening in those routes. Ministry of Infrastructure is working intensively, but we just want to stress that this development of alternate routes can be done in green way, and financing which is allocated to green projects can be also used for that, to increase sustainability of the world and to increase the food security of Africa specifically. There will be further public official announcements of this initiative, but till that you can read the supportive materials, and you can actually share your opinion, and you can send your intentions, and you can comment that how you can participate in that, because it's both, it's climate opportunity, it's investment opportunity, and it's food security. It's important for everybody. So if you have questions, you can ask them or address the website and send your comments on this email. If no questions, then thank you very much for your attention. Thank you for your support to Ukraine. Be safe. Good luck to us all.
Thank you very much, colleagues. All the very best. And thanks a lot for the organizers. Bye-bye.